Hello, hello. This is the my artifact episode number 4109. Today's date is um, June 18, 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 6:53, 6:53 a.m. It's morning. All right. There is nothing really have to say. All right. Let's just jump to the question. All right. Let's go. All right. So question is, am I trying to understand or just waiting for turn to my speak? By the way, I kind of like a give this question. I kind of like a give the answer of this question multiple times, but still, oh yeah. First of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? A couple of days ago, I read a book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and I wanted to implement the value that book taught me. How do I supposed to do that? By asking question to myself and giving the honest answer. So I went to ChatGPT. I said that this is a book that I read. I wanted to implement the value. Suggest me 20 question. ChatGPT kind of like a suggest me 20 question, and this is one of those questions. By the way, the question actually in the mobile phone, but while recording you cannot do anything at all, so that's why I wrote the question in here. Okay, by the way, this is the book that I'm reading, The Principia of Mathematica by Isaac Newton. It's really good, really great. um, yeah, really good book. It really required a kind of like a lot of kind of like a strength to read this book. I am kind of like a simplified this book, like I knew that this is a kind of like a book that I cannot able to be read and consume the information, so I'm using chat gpt. I take a photo of page that I want to read, upload that photo on chat gpt, says this thing, summarize this entire page for me. Chat gpt kind of like a summarize me in simple language. Even if some of the stuff that I don't understand, I kind of like I said simplified me in simple language. ChatGPT kind of like a simplified me even more simple language, and because of this thing, I could able to be reading this book and consuming the information and things and that and that. Because like if I try to read the manual way, then just I'm trying to look at to you. So I'm right now kind of like a reading at section like a these are the pages that I read. Okay. By the way, have you seen these are kind of like a doodles that I do is a kind of like a somebody understanding the concept regarding about the Newtons and things and that and that. That's why I do these doodles and things and write down the some of the stuff and things and that and that. The one of the kind of like a difficult thing that kind of like a somebody is this thing to understand the book. Like this is a book. Okay, complete text, nothing really at all. You might found a kind of like a some bunch of diagram over here to understand the concept, but still it's very difficult to understand. Not because of the kind of like a basically the book doesn't really kind of like engaging that much, but the problem is that the way that book written is not for the casual reader. It kind of like a right for as a scientist point of perspective. Like if you are mathematics or if you are a kind of like a particular person who understand the calculus, who understand the limit, who understand the derivative integration and kind of like understand regarding about little bit of something gravity, then probably you might try to read and you might gonna consume the information. But if you are the casual reader and you might not understand all those concepts, then this book is a kind of like a very foreign thing for you. Even if you try to understand things, nothing will at all. As also, the language that they use is a kind of like a something the very like a very kind of like a very different language. What's a different language? Okay, so basically the one thing that I notice is that usually in the mathematics we understand the limit. Okay, what's the limit? Like the limit x is to 0, lambda 0 by 1. This is the kind of like assembly limit that we kind of like study in the engineering college. Okay, if you're not from engineering background or maybe something that key, then you might not understand, but these are kind of like a derivative and integration and these are that. But the stuff are over here, the limit, they kind of like say llama. Okay, llama is a kind of like a things, is a previous version of limit. And these are kind of like a very small things, but kind of like a very different. Okay, basically in most of the days we kind of like a consider as a momentum, like when the body actually moves, so it has is in the momentum. They kind of like a say motion of the body. Okay, so some of the kind of like some words are just little bit of, it's not really difficult, but it's kind of like a thing is that na ki when all those words and kind of like a stuff it just compiled, it's very difficult to read. Use a chat gpt or use any kind of like AI which kind of like a simplified for you, and it's really helpful, literally. Like I cannot able to be imagine, like I read like this many book, this many kind of like a pages, almost like a 66 pages that I read, and I still understand what is actually in that 66 page, what exactly is this thing and that and that. There are so many things should supposed to be learned, but still is this thing that key, the manual way of reading a book and using AI to kind of like a read a book is a two different thing. Because when you read the book by AI, you understand the concept more. But if you started reading a book just by manual point of perspective, it depends on who you are. If you are a scholar, if you are kind of like a somebody fast learner, then you might gonna understand even much more better. But I am not that kind of like a person. I kind of like a take a photo, upload it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT kind of like explain me in simple language. If I don't really understand, I kind of like a use even ChatGPT kind of like a showing me some sort of image regarding about that this and that and that. So it's really good. Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of like reading, and I'm really proud of myself to kind of like read this heavy book and kind of like consuming the information, because I am the kind of like a only particular person who just not kind of like read the book, but the within a year I'm kind of like getting this transformation by this, like not just kind of like this book, but kind of like a, I try to push myself little bit of out of the box, and I don't know, it adds so much amount of value. It's very difficult to kind of like say how much add value in myself, but I think it is. Okay. So yeah. Uh, if you wanted to try it out, try it out. Use ChatGPT, upload the photo on ChatGPT, and kind of like I said, explain me in simple language. ChatGPT kind of like explain to you entire page in simple language. Do this page by page, page by page, page by page. Okay. Yeah. And you don't really require a kind of like a ChatGPT subscription. A free subscription kind of like a somebody do this thing. It's a very kind. It's not really that much kind of like a stuff. So yeah. Uh, sorry. Let's just jump into the question. Okay, the question is that okay. So one thing, I am I try to understand or kind of like a something is this thing jump into the kind of like a reply or kind of like a like a like basically urge to the kind of like a things and that, like okay, what exactly is this question about? Okay, the question is about that key in the conversation when you try to communicate with other people and things and that, have you ever kind of like a feel that key other people are really eager to talk? Okay, they just wanted to talk. Okay, even if I don't really complete my sentence, other people just barge in into it, and they just kind of like somebody jump into their conversation and things and that. Now, is it wrong? Well, basically it's not wrong, but it's not really good as well. As why? Because of that na ki, let's just say other person is kind of like a talking something, and you are kind of like a somebody eager to kind of like a, you are not understanding or you are not listening that particular person, and you are kind of like a somebody barge into your kind of like a talk, or you are kind of like a somebody things, or you are like a like a barge into the kind of like a communication, like what's a barge? Okay, they kind of like a mention really good word. Okay, jump jump to speak. Yeah, jump to speak. You just kind of like a jump into the speak and things and that. Okay, first of all, why this actually happened? Okay, let's just understand why does kind of like a, some people are kind of like a, some jump into the speaks. They don't really kind of like a try to understand things and that. Why? Before I wanted to understand, let's just understand that when this actually happened, like literally when. Okay, so let's just say a kind of like a two people are talking, only two people, by phone or in front of each other. Okay, so when the two people are talking, in that situation, the particular person who kind of like a doing a kind of like a simply jump into the other people conversation and try to talk about this thing, it happened very less. Why? Because there are only two people are try to talk. That's it. So there are a lot of room to kind of like a simply lot of rooms to available, that everyone kind of like a get opportunity to talk. This person also get, this person also get, because there are only two people. So if you are kind of like a doing a communication with only two people, like this person and this person, then probably this would not gonna happen that much. But let's just say a kind of like a some in the communication there are most like a more than two-person or maybe more than three-person, then this would actually happen. Let's just say five people are kind of like a somebody in the group, they are kind of like a talking, and in that particular thing, this is mostly happen. Okay, that key one particular person is a kind of like a jump into the speak. That particular person does not really try to understand and things and that. But why this not actually happen in one-to-one communication, but why it actually happen in kind of like in group communication? Okay, now in the group communication, what exactly happened, that key in the one-to-one communication, you kind of like a get opportunity to talk, but when you are in the group, you are not getting the opportunity of talk, and that is a kind of like a really essential thing, because opportunity of talk is a kind of like a freedom to express your thoughts and things and that. One-to-one communication, you will get that freedom, but when you are in the group, you will not gonna get that freedom. You have to be kind of like a simply that key, you have to be jump into that, you have to kind of like a like a basically is this thing, when the five people are kind of like a talking and things and that a group, then what is actually happened, that key if you are silent, okay, if you are silent, then you just never have opportunity to talk, you just always been silent. Okay, so there is only one way to kind of like a things is to jump into the communication. Okay, yeah. But like this is also not way, like it's a kind of like a silent is a kind of like a one way of kind of like a things, jump into the calculation, jump into the conversation is another thing. You don't have to be silent, or you don't have to be kind of like a jump into the kind of like a in between the middle of the talks and things, that no, there is a kind of like a midway. Okay, and what is actually midway, what is actually mid kind of like a things? Listen. Okay, listen is a kind of like a very much essential, because when you kind of like a listening, by the way, when you are silent, you are also listening too, but how you listening, that is a kind of like a important. Let me tell you one thing, in the communication masterclass in the communication, okay, it does not depend upon your communication does not going to improve when you talk more. No, the communication is actually improve when you listen more. Listen is a kind of like a important instrument or important chapter of the communication. If you're not able to be listen, you are not able to be do a really good communication, because listening is a very much essential thing. Okay, how you should supposed to be listen. Okay, but dude, listening is a kind of like a very stupid thing, like a like just listen. Okay, what exactly is this thing, what is exactly that? Okay, let me kind of like a tell you something. Okay, a kind of like a something like a scenario. Okay, like one of my friend kind of like a mention, and I wanted to tell you. Okay, so basically it's not a kind of like a friend, is a kind of like a things that he just a person that I know. Okay, all right. So basically what is actually happened, that he we are kind of like a something. Okay, like this is actually happened in maybe kind of like a something, that he I was kind of like a working with some sort of group, specifically a kind of like a film group. Okay, yeah. I was kind of like a working on kind of like a short film. I was kind of like a particular person who is back into the film and things and that. Okay. And we are kind of like a making that short film. Now, basically, what is actually happened that when we are kind of like a shooting, there are a lot of stuff actually happening. Lot of stuff. Like things happen. Okay, yeah. Now, basically, is this thing that I found a kind of like a girl who is a kind of like a doing a makeup. Okay, that like something that he she's like I don't know. Does it like? By the way, this example is not really resonate that much. Yeah, it's a kind of like a thing. Like, why is not resonate? It's not okay. This is not the kind of like a things. Okay, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna kind of like a give you another example. Okay, sorry. Let's not kind of like a jump into the kind of like a some of the things. I want to understand that why does people are wanted to kind of like a jump into the speak, or why does kind of like a people are kind of like eager to talk. What is actually reason for that? Okay, yeah. Not so many people does, but like some people does. Okay, in my group, I have kind of like a friend who kind of like a do that thing, who just jump into the bargain into the conversation and kind of like things. Why does is actually happen? Why is that thing? Well, first of all, is that okay, as I mentioned, this is actually happening group of communication, not one to one. Okay, in the group of communication, how we are always seek for validation, or we are always seek for something that we are good, or we are better, or we are much better than someone. And how do we supposed to prove that we are kind of like a much better than someone? uh, by talk. Okay, like a like I don't really understand. Okay, let me kind of like explain in simple language. Let's just say a group of kind of like some top richest people on the planet: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, the Jason Wong. Let's just say a kind of like a couple of group of richest people on the planet. Okay, yeah. Who in that particular people? Okay, in that particular people, like 5 to 10 people. Okay, in that thing, who is a kind of like a most kind of like a somebody that most amazing person, or most things and that person. It does not depend upon how much money that they have. No, because in that people, they all are kind of like a billionaire and trillionaire. Okay, yeah. So money was not even kind of like a matter for them, and everyone are kind of like a really like a already good. Okay, but basically is this thing, when we are in the kind of like a part of the group where everyone is a kind of like a equal. Okay, equal means like that, as I mentioned, all the kind of like a top 10 people are already very top elite people, top richest people on the planet. But in their group, they all are equal because everyone are kind of like a billionaire and trillionaire. Okay, let's just say billionaire. Okay, everyone are kind of like a billionaire. Okay, so in that situation, who will gonna decide that who is a kind of like a better one? Okay, who will gonna decide who is kind of like a better one? By talk, by how much you kind of like simply talk. Okay, and this is kind of like a things, because when you talk, what is actually happened? People are kind of like a look at to you. Even if you're talking shit, people are kind of like a looking at to you. Okay, and because of this thing, you are getting the validation. You are getting the attention, and because of attention, you are also getting the some sort of kind of like a simply validation. Well, validation, I will not gonna kind of like a say validation actually comes from kind of like a simply how much value that you provided, but attention that you get, because when you talk, people kind of like a look up to you, and people will kind of like a look up to you. You drag the attention, even if the top one of the kind of like a group of top richest person on the planet, if you are talking into that thing, you are the kind of like a dragging attention. Let's just say is this thing, the top 10 richest people on the planet, they are kind of like in the group, and you are not the richest person on the planet, but you went into that group and you are talking. So when you are talking, other people kind of like a listen it to you, you are also getting the kind of like a something that ki validation. You are kind of like a things that, oh my god, these are the kind of like top 10 richest people on the planet, and when I'm kind of like into the group I'm talking, they are kind of like a looking towards me. So it getting the value, it felt good, it felt something that ki wow, it felt something that ki amazing, it felt something that ki really good. Okay, so this is what it is. In visual context point of perspective, visual context, I'm talking about the eyes, visual context point of perspective, who is kind of like a better at that moment? The person who is a talking, not a person as a listening. Because the person who is a kind of like a listening, he just stand there and listening. There is nothing more to kind of like a visually appealing to see, because he just standing and kind of like a looking. But the person who is a kind of like a talking is a kind of like a visually appealing to see, visually appealing to kind of like a feel, visually appealing. Okay, so because of this thing, it kind of like a gets the attention as well as the validation is also came from the value, but still you also get the validation, you also get that ki, oh, this particular person is actually talking, that means this particular person is something. Okay, so do you understand? So that's why kind of like some people are kind of like a barge into the kind of like somebody talking, or kind of like a jump into the speak and things and that. Okay, now let's take a thing. What if I do not do that? Like a, I am the kind of like a some particular person, I will not kind of like a barge into the communication, I will not kind of like a jump into the speak, I will kind of like a just a listen. Okay, yeah. So what will gonna happen? Well, basically, is this thing, okay? We are living in the world, and that world called attention economy. We are living in the world where attention economy, and attention came from the value that you provided, okay? Or if you are not providing the value, then you have to talk, okay? You have to talk, okay? Because this is the things, okay? What is actually value that you provided? Okay, let's just understand. Let's take a kind of like Elon Musk, okay? Now, Elon Musk built a company, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, Starlink. These are kind of like a building those webs, building those companies, and making them successful is very difficult. One of the difficult tasks in the world. But Elon Musk does that thing, and because of Elon Musk does that thing, he already has so much amount of not only the attention but also validation. Even if that particular person just kind of like a listen, he also drag the attention because he also generates so much amount of value. So basically is this thing what I'm saying, that Elon Musk is a kind of like a particular person who kind of like simply drags so much amount of attention, even if he just kind of like a listening. Okay, yeah. This is kind of like a somebody value. Okay, when you generate the value, you automatically seek the attention, you automatically seek the attention. Okay, but when you are not that particular person, because not everyone is a kind of like a building a company, not everyone is a kind of like a somebody richest person on the planet, not everyone is a kind of like a somebody things and that. So basically, how does other people know that you are good? Because from Elon Musk point of perspective, I know that he is a good because he built that many company and that. Okay, even if he don't really speak, I knew that what he built. But the particular person who just not really knew anything at all, completely random stranger. So in that situation, we need a context regarding about that. Ki how is that particular good person or not? And how that particular person will kind of like represent that how good is that, by talking, because talking is a kind of like a very easy way to instrument to kind of like somebody thinks that ki, how good am I, how good am I. Okay, so this is what kind of like a things. Okay, so that's why people are kind of like a jump into the talking, because of that ki even if they didn't really create any kind of like a value in the world, but still they are kind of like somebody getting so much amount of attention just because of talking. Okay, yeah. It does not depend upon how good you talk or how bad you talk, it just attention, because when you talk it just game of attention, because when you talk it drag the attention, and when it drag the attention it automatically get the validation. If it not, yeah, but it get the attention, it get the attention. So that's why people are kind of like a somebody jump into the kind of like a talk. But what if you are not kind of like a particular person who just not talk, then you are kind of like a somebody just a random guy who just looking at. Okay. This is not gonna kind of like a came with the Elon Musk, because Elon Musk already provided so many things. So even if you don't talk, people are already getting so much amount of attention, because yeah. But if you are just a normal guy who like nothing really at all, people doesn't know you and you are just standing there, people kind of like consider you just introvert, or maybe kind of consider that you are just a kind of like a random guy just sitting over there, and that's it. Okay, yeah. So there is no context about you, so there is nothing really at all, so you just okay, yeah. And another thing, but why we are kind of like a somebody just seek for the validation? What exactly is this thing? What is that? Why we are kind of like a seek for validation? We are kind of like a seeking validation is because we are human. Okay, yeah. Okay, what do you mean by that? Okay, what do you mean by that? Okay, let's just say, who is the king of jungle? Tiger or lion, right? Does lion or tiger know that they are the king of jungle? No, they does not know that. Okay, yeah. Then basically is this thing, then like, then why we kind of like a somebody kind of like a somebody give them that tagline, that key kind of like a jungle and things and that, and like king of the jungle? Why we kind of like give that tagline? Because those are kind of like a somebody animal are kind of like a carnivorous animal. They kind of like a eat people and things and that. So we actually kind of like a determine their kind of like a strength by how much they attack other people. Okay, yeah. And when they are attacking other people and other animal are kind of like a somebody run away, so we might consider that this is the kind of like a thing, is the king of the jungle, because other animal is a kind of like a run away from you. Because of that how much value that you hold, it is also kind of like a determined by the how much other people or other thing is a kind of like a scared of you. Okay, yeah. So other animal is kind of like a scared of you, that means you are the kind of like a jungle of the, you are the king of the jungle. Okay. Zebra is not a kind of like a king of the jungle. Why? Because he always run away from the lion and things and that. A kind of like a somebody a deer is not the king of the jungle, because he always run away from the lion. Same goes with the rabbit, same goes with the things and that. So that's why. Okay. But lion does know that thing? No, lion does not know this thing, because lion is a kind of like a things that he wanted to eat. Okay, and the only one thing that he could eat by killing the another animal, and that's it. Okay, yeah. The god is a kind of like a universe is actually created, a nature is actually created a lion in such a way that he only and only survive by kind of like a killing another animal. Okay, yeah. Then basically lion does not know that he is the king of the world and things and that. Sorry, he king of the jungle and things and that and that. Okay, it just kind of like a we kind of like a give the perception. Okay, yeah. But what if kind of like a lion will kind of like a basically, but why not kind of like a lion consider him as a kind of like a somebody king of the jungle and things and that because he does not really have a kind of like a intelligence, knowledge, understanding other. We do. Okay, let me kind of like a things. Our evolution is a kind of like a determine how we think and how we kind of like a see the world and things and that. We are human, we can't fly, we can't run, we can't survive ourselves, because we are very vulnerable. We do not have fur, so that we should supposedly survive in kind of like a somebody cold winter. We do not have anything at all. We are just a kind of like a somebody kind of like a such a species just meant to be die, literally meant to be die, because nothing really at all. So how do I supposed to be survive? I am the human, how do I supposed to be survive? The only one thing that when other humans are kind of like a connect together means come together, then our survival rate is a kind of like a really higher. Okay, yeah. Two people come together, survival rate is a kind of like a 20%. Three people come together, survival rate 30%. Four people come together, 40%. 50, 60, 70, 80, and then the 10 people came 100% of survival. And when you include more, then even more survival rate is actually happen. So basically our survival is a kind of like a somebody depend on how many people that we gather. And basically the nature is a kind of like a support the fittest one will kind of like alive and kind of like follow the next generation and things and that. Like what exactly is this thing? Nature has a kind of like a survival of the fittest. The a species kind of like somebody go ahead or follow ahead or kind of like somebody went ahead on the time is depend upon how that particular species is survive. Okay, yeah. And human are kind of like a survive because of it comes together, and when it comes together there are a lot of things actually happen. We develop thought, we develop language, we understand each other, because when we are together it's not kind of like a thing is that we just kind of like a stay together. No, we have to kind of like a collaborate to kind of like a hunt. How do we supposed to be hunt? How do we supposed to get the food? How do we supposed to this and that? When we are live together, we need a kind of like a something, a kind of like a direction. How do we supposed to do this thing? One particular person who kind of like have experience regarding about hunting, that particular person will kind of like say how you should supposed to be hunt. And because of this particular person kind of like tell us how you should supposed to be hunt, other people kind of like look up to that particular person, and that particular person became the leader. Okay, yeah, became the leader. So this is what it is. This is what kind of like things, because we are a social animal. Okay, I cannot say the kind of like a lion is a social animal. Okay, yeah. Uh, like I might gonna say like a basically is this thing like a fishes are the kind of like a social animal, but still is this thing that they are not really that much, because probably I don't know. It's a kind of like a lot of biology and things probably, but one thing I wanted to say is that humans are kind of like a social animal. Our development, our evolution actually happened by living together and things and that. And because of this thing, we are kind of like a somebody understanding the validation. Everyone wants to be that leader. So basically that's why they are kind of like doing only one thing by providing the value or talk. Okay, yeah. So that's why people are kind of like a jump or barge into the kind of like a somebody communication. Now I have to be asked this question to myself: am I that particular person? Well, basically it depends on who you are, what exactly your consequences and things and that. Example: I am kind of like applied for a job, and in the job after the interview there is a kind of like a group, kind of like a things, group discussion. Okay, yeah. Like how much credible that is. Like some of the kind of like a profession kind of like use this technique to kind of like understand how much other people confidence. Okay, yeah. And also confidence also kind of like something generated by the how good you talk. Okay, so in that situation, if you just shut up, okay, then probably you will not gonna get a job. In that situation you have to be talk. You have to be talk. Okay, because when you not talk, you will not gonna get into the limelight, and when you are not getting the limelight, you will not gonna get a job. So in that situation you have to be talk. Okay, yeah. So this is what it is. It kind of like it depends in the group of people, like let's just say in with my friends, will I kind of like a jump into the kind of like a somebody kind of like a communication? No, it's not that. But it's not that ki kind of like I wait for the communication or I wait for my reply and things. No, I talk. But it's not that ki I kind of like a jump into the things and that. It's a kind of like a somebody is this thing. It's not a kind of like a somebody you are just a listen and you are just a kind of like a talking person. There is a kind of like a line in between how things. I am kind of like a in between kind of like that. Okay. I understand what is actually existing when I really required that it is my kind of like a somebody my time to kind of like somebody talk. I have to be talk because it's essential. If you're not talking, people consider you as a weak and things and that, because we are living in society where attention economy are actually over here. So yeah, this is what it is. It kind of like a depend on situations surrounding and things and that. Okay, but one of the greatest thing that I understand, the listening is a kind of like a really good part of communication, and I try to learning these skills. But right now I am learning. I am not saying that I'm kind of like a really good at that. I am learning to how to be kind of like a really good listener. Okay, and yeah, this is kind of like I'm trying. All right, so this is a kind of like my answer. All right, thank you.